Hello and welcome to Mad Knitting. This is a YouTube channel that's all about my crafting life, which is about 90% knitting and 10% everything else. My name is Susan. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and you can find me elsewhere online as madtownmama on Ravelry and madtown_mama on Instagram. I am very active in both of those places. Today is January 17, 2024. I think this is episode 54. Anyway, we are coming out of a deep freeze. I live in Madison, Wisconsin, and winter took its sweet time coming, but we're all caught up now, I think. It just showed up all at once. We had 2 major snowstorms last week, which actually was bad enough for them to cancel school. That's pretty rare in Madison. And that was immediately followed by a drop in temperatures. So it was so cold yesterday on Tuesday, I actually thought they might cancel school again, but they didn't. The wind chills were like 25, 30 below zero Fahrenheit. It's better today, but still pretty cold. However, it is above zero, and I plan to get outside maybe to do some snowshoeing later. I'm a person who needs to get outside every day, just for my own kind of general wellness and well-being. And I will go out in just about any weather. When it's that much below zero, I did have to draw the line yesterday because it was so bad, but I will bundle up. I'll put on my snow pants and all the wool and, have everything covered up, and I'll go for a walk, and that just makes me happier. Okay, so today I have a variety of things to show you. I have a few finished objects that I've knitted. I have a couple of things in progress, and I have a number of sewing projects to share with you also. I'll timestamp all of that so that if you're not interested in all the crafts, you can just watch the things you want. But here we go. I will start with what I'm wearing. This is the arboreal sweater. I made this, I think, about 2 years ago, and it's one of my favorites. I talked about this in, I forget which episode, but it was a couple of months ago. I pulled out some of the sweaters that I wear the most and talked about why, and this was in that group. So I won't go into great details, but the pattern Arboreal is by Jennifer Steingass. The yarn I used 2 different yarns that are local to Wisconsin. The gray main color is a special run of DK weight from Barrett Wool Co. And it has held up gorgeously. Like, there's maybe a teeny bit of fuzz on the sleeves, but it's really looking pretty good. And the contrast I used is from Utopia Fiber Mill. This is their Helix DK. So it's a slow color changing yarn. They have a variety of colorways in this yarn. They also have a fingering weight version. But it's fun because there are many different colors. This one happened to be a little more of a subtle gradient. Some of them are like really wild color variations. Anyway, it's nice and warm, and I love how it fits, so I wear it a lot. So I have 3 finished objects to share with you. 2 are not with me. The first one is a sweater for my mom that I finished and mailed off. So I'm going to insert a segment I recorded last week about that here. Hi, this is Past Susan here to tell you about a finished object that I need to package up and send ASAP. Today is Monday, January 8th, and we have this huge winter storm coming tonight and tomorrow. So I would like to get to the post office today to send off the sweater I just finished for my mom, which is what I'm going to tell you about. Before I do that, I'll mention quickly that the shawl I am wearing, I put it on just for this video, so you're welcome. I had on just this frumpy thrifted sweater before, and I thought this would be better for you. It's called something and honey, like maybe oats and honey. I don't remember exactly, but I'll make sure I put the title and the designer's name at the bottom of the screen. It's by Gabriella Makes, and I used Neighborhood Fiber Company Rustic Fingering. in this really bright lime green color, and I held it along with a strand of Knit Picks Aloft in the color Tarragon. So I ended up with this really lovely kind of bright acid green that may not be the best color for me, but I like it anyway. And it's a very warm and cozy shawl. Now, the sweater I have finished, this is rather epic. It took me just over a month to make, and I'm very, very pleased with how it came out. I sincerely hope that my mom likes it as much as I do. This is called the Solina sweater. It is a Christmas present for my mother. She and I picked out the pattern and the yarn together because I wanted to make sure it was exactly what she wanted. She also gave me some very detailed measurements for what she wanted in terms of fit, and I'll go through that with you in a bit. But I'm just gonna hold the yoke up closer to the camera phone for you to see because it is so beautiful. And now that it's blocked out, I think you can see this much better than in previous episodes when I have shown this project as a work in progress. You can see there's a lace pattern. It's not difficult to execute at all. There are baubles. There were 2 rounds of baubles on the yoke. My mom really likes baubles, so this was fine. There are also baubles on the sleeves. So this is one of the cool things about the pattern is that it's knit top down. It is knit top down. You do this whole cool lace yoke thing, and then the rest of it is pretty standard straight stockinette body. The rib uses a twisted knit stitch for the rib. For the sleeves though, before you get all the way to the bottom of the sleeve, you follow this chart to do this lace pattern that echoes what you also have on the yoke. So there's baubles here as well. And that leads into the ribbing, and it's pretty cool how you can see here, it leads into the cuff. So you're actually starting the ribbing for the rest of the cuff as you're finishing up the last part of the chart. So that's pretty cool. So let me tell you more about the pattern. It's by Mayu KP. It is from this book Contrasts, Textured Knitting, which is published by Lina. I have a few issues with the book itself. First of all, there's no download code with it, so you either have to schlep around this book, which is, you know, this is pretty big heavy book, or make a copy of the pattern. You can't like download it and print it yourself. The other issue I have is that a lot of the charts are printed on colored paper. Like the instructions are on this nice cream paper, but a lot of the charts, not all of them, but a lot of them are like on dark colored paper. I'll just flash this, but you can't easily, not when you're over 40 anyway, and you have eyes like mine. It is hard to read a chart that is grayscale on like teal paper. Anyway, none of those are insurmountable barriers, right? It's just kind of annoying considering this was not an inexpensive book. So the pattern is called Solina. It is a Finnish word meaning water sounds, murmuring, and the Solina pullover features a delicate circular lace yoke. You actually have a choice of how deep you want the yoke. So that's pretty nice actually, because it affects how much of the lace chart you follow before you move on to the rest of the sweater. Here's a picture of what it looks like in the book. I thought the instructions were very good and easy to follow, so no complaints there. It does call for short rows on the back of the neck, which I very much appreciate. So I didn't have to add those, that was all included. Let me tell you about some of the modifications I did for my mom. If you've watched my channel before and seen previous videos about this, it may be review, but I just want to summarize here since this is the finished product. There were a few specific things that my mom wanted addressed in this sweater, other than giving me just basic, like this is what size she wanted, this is how long she wanted the body, and so forth. First of all, she wanted more stitches in the front than in the back. She wanted about a 2-inch difference because I am not built to be at all curvy or busty. My mom has considerably more real estate, if you will, in the front than I do. So she wanted 2 more inches in the front than the back. That was very easy to accommodate. I just followed the instructions as written until it came to the sleeve divide, and then I made sure that I had more stitches in the front than in the back when I split for the sleeves. The second thing she wanted done to accommodate her body type was that she has curvature in her spine, and if you don't do anything to accommodate that, it causes things to ride up in the back for her and also to sort of pull at the neck. So the 2 things we did to deal with that were, 1, to add short rows to the back, which are called for in the pattern and which should be standard for any sweater pattern, to raise the back neck in some way, whether it's by short rows or some other thing. But also, because that curve is present further down her spine than just the top, I added short rows to the back of the sweater. This yarn, which I'll talk about in a bit, has pretty good stitch definition. So you can see where I did the short rows, but I did 6 sets of them in order to get a 2-inch difference in length between the back and the front. And I spaced them out pretty evenly, starting just below the armhole. You can kind of see where they're bumpy here. That's where the short rows are. Spaced them out pretty evenly down to a few inches before I started the ribbing at the bottom. I came in from so I had stitch markers along the sides of the sweater, and I did those short rows on the back. I think 5 or 6 stitches in from the side seam. I would, the way I do it, I think it's the double stitch. It's where you basically yank the stitch upside down and then turn to go the other way. I just did that about 6 times, about 2.5 inches apart on the back. And it turns out it fits perfectly. So I have totally finished the knitting on this, obviously, and I've blocked it and I have hidden all the ends except the sleeves. My mom tried this on when I saw them over Christmas break, but I hadn't started the sleeves yet. I wanted to make sure the rest of the fit was good before I got any further, and it was. I got the green light to go ahead, but as a final check, I'm going to send this to her with the last ends in each sleeve not woven in, because I want to make sure the sleeve length is right, or that it fits. I mean, this is sort of a loose cuff, so if that bothers her, then I will have to redo part of the sleeve. So it's just a precautionary thing. If the sleeve fits and she likes it, she can hide the end herself. She's perfectly capable of doing that. So I'm calling it done. It's as done as it's going to get for me, at least until I send it. The Solina sweater for my mom by Mayu KP. The last thing I'll say is about the yarn. I liked it. All my extras are falling on the floor, so give me a second. Oh my goodness. Okay. So we picked out this yarn together. It is called Woolen Cotton. It's a fairly new yarn that's from Knit Picks. It is 50% wool, 50% cotton. It is hand wash only, as far as I know. Yeah, it says hand wash, cold, dry, flat. I really liked knitting with it. Here's the label. It's listed as a DK weight. It says to use between number 5 and number 7 needle, so that's 3.75 to 4.5 millimeter needle. When I did a gauge swatch, I tried it on 5s and 6s, and I got the gauge I needed with size 5, which was 5.5 stitches per inch. I also liked the fabric I got with a size 6 needle. That gave me 5 stitches per inch. So just for future reference, that's good for me to know if I ever get more of this yarn and want to knit a different sweater with it. I ordered 8 skeins. This is the color Sean Heather, which is a very light tan. If you go to the Knit Picks website, as of now, as of January 2024, they have several colors available, but most of them are very dark. When my mom and I were looking at colors together, she did not want any of the dark colors because I don't think she likes wearing super dark colors, and also the stitch pattern probably wouldn't show up as well. So her options for pale colors were either this, there's also a heathery gray called Dolly Heather, and then they have Bear, which is more, undyed sort of cream color. I ordered 8 skeins. I have a whole skein left over. I could have gotten away with 7 for sure. And this is what I have left over from the other skeins that I used. I did weigh these right before turning on the video, or just before recording, and these come out to about 87 grams, which is less than a skein. So I would have definitely needed 7 skeins, did not need the 8th, which isn't too bad. I sometimes way overshoot when I estimate yarn that I need. I would rather play it safe and have a bunch left over than play yarn chicken. Not everybody feels that way. I don't mind leftovers. That said, I don't really know what to do with these. But I don't mind having them on hand. I'm thinking this might be good for toys. It's a good color to make like a bear or a rabbit or a kitten or something like that. I like knitting toys from time to time. So that's what I have to say about the Selena sweater using Knit Picks wool and cotton that I am sending to my mom. Quick update, like news update on my mom. She had knee replacement this week. I really wanted her to get that sweater before her surgery, just so she could enjoy it, before she had to deal with all the pain and the physical therapy and stuff that comes with a joint replacement. When she got it, she tried it on right away and she said that it fit and she loves it. And then she said, well, the sleeves might be just a little tight. And I asked her to send me a picture and she said maybe later, and I don't have a picture. So I'm not sure when I will get a photo of her wearing the sweater. Might be a while, but be that as it may, I will keep you updated if I have to redo those sleeves. The second finished object is a hat that I had in progress last time. Because I don't have it with me because my son has taken it. It is his hat now. It is super, super warm. So I have pictures I took over the weekend when I finished it. So I'll insert them as I'm talking, but I'll keep this brief just because I don't have it with me. It's a variation on the Polka Polka hat, which I have made many times. I adapted it for a thicker gauge was the main difference. So the outer layer is all the leftovers of Icelandic wool that I bought during our trip to Iceland in 2022. I didn't want any of it to go to waste, and I really did use every last bit. I think I have about 1 yard left over from like the charcoal color. So it's a fairly tall hat. It's tall enough you can fold up the brim over your ears. The inside layer is Classic Elite Fresco, which is a merino alpaca, I think, and Angora blend. It's so warm that my son took it to wear to school because it's been so cold. My husband, I think, would like one of these too. So even though I'm out of the Icelandic wool yarn, I dug up some Barocco Ultra Alpaca, which is a 50-50 wool alpaca blend in worsted weight. I found a color he likes, so I will be using that for the outer layer, and I have more Classic Elite Fresco that I will use for the lining, but I'll show you that when I get to it. The third finished object is yet another Polka Polka hat. I'm a bit of a broken record with these. I think there are people that feel this way about the Musselburgh hat. Isolde is not my jam. And I have enjoyed this pattern, and it's in a book I have, so I'm just going to keep going with this version. this version of a double layer reversible hat. So this is also one I showed you last time. I think showing all those works in progress inspired me to get some of them finished. So here it is, all done and all pulled out. I have worn this a lot in the cold weather. The outer layer is Knit Circus. This is probably Greatest of Ease, which is just their 80/20 merino nylon base. I lost the label, so I'm just going from memory here. It's probably shades of gray. I know that that is one of their colorways, and I'm pretty sure that the darker half of the skein I used in maybe another hat that I gave away. So I used not quite all of what's left, but quite a bit of it to make the outer layer. The inner layer is Knit Picks Aloft, which is a mohair silk blend. I had just a little bit of this magenta left, so I used it on the brim so that part would show when I'm wearing it, and the rest is in this silver color. I didn't quite use up all of the silver, but there's not a whole lot of it left. This was very satisfying to use up leftovers. So this is how it looks on. It fits nicely, snug enough to keep me warm, but loose enough that it's not squishing my hair, and it's got this nice pop of color in the brim, which I quite enjoy. I did, because it's been so cold and I've been all about like the warmest hats that I can make lately, I'll just show you this other Poca Poca hat that I finished last fall, also using leftover yarn. This is a Mountain Colors sock yarn that I had left over for some socks. There's mohair in it, in this blend. Mohair and I think wool and nylon. So it's a little bit thicker than regular sock yarn, and it's also warmer because of that mohair. And I lined it with black Knit Picks Aloft. So this one, I think just because there's extra mohair content in the outer layer as well, is extra warm. So this is the one I've been wearing when I go out the last few days. And you know, it's so cold that it hurts to breathe, and you regret your life choices moving up north, and I'll get over it. Anyway, so those are my finished. Oh no, I have one more hat that's finished. I almost forgot. So while I was on this finishing spree, this is one of these hats that I've been trying to use up leftover yarn. So this is using Rowan Soft Yak DK. I used up the last bit of this silvery gray color and then continued on with a pink. The pattern I used for this is called Basic Beanie. It's by Tin Can Knits, and I almost don't need a pattern for a hat like this because it's just 2x2 rib, but I like that their decreases are very neat looking at the top, the way it kind of fits in with the ribbing. So I use the pattern basically for the crown decreases. I think, do I have that? Yeah, I have this printed out. I mean, it's pretty basic as the title implies. If you're very experienced in knitting, you probably don't need a pattern for something like this, but Tin Can Knits, they do the sizing for you, they do the stitch counts for you. This comes in 7 sizes in 4 different gauges. So between all of those different numbers, you can find something that will work for you, and you won't have to think so hard about the decreases when you get there. That's the advantage to that pattern. This will go to some charity. I haven't decided what. You know, I don't want to make things to give away unless I know that they will actually be useful for the people that they're going to. Like if I just donated to a shelter or something, I would want to make sure that they really want hand knit items at that shelter. Like, I don't know. I think there's if you're new here, I tend to go on tangents and I tend to get on soapboxes about things, but I try to keep it craft related, and I try not to make everything all about different social causes, because that's annoying, let's be honest. I don't like preachy people. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, I think there is a tendency sometimes in the crafting community, you know, people tend to think that they're being very generous because they will make a lot of things to give away, but you have to make sure that you're actually giving away things that are useful and helpful to the recipient. Like this, I think, is washable yarn, so I'm not worried about that. But you know, it's important to pay attention to what people's needs actually are before you make a donation, because I think sometimes there are charities that probably end up with a whole lot of stuff that they don't really know what to do with, and then it's kind of a burden for them to figure out what to do with things. So like I remember once years ago reading about a Toys for Tots campaign. Like giving toys to kids in need, how can that be a bad thing? But I remember reading that they were so overwhelmed with toys, like they had way more than they had kids to give them to, and then they had to figure out what to do with all those extra toys. And like just make sure that when you're making a donation, it's really needed and it's really going to help somebody. In fact, donating money is usually the best way to support an organization. That said, I like knitting hats and I will find a cause to donate this to. I have a few in mind. Okay, so that's it for finished objects. I have just a few works in progress to show you, like 2 works in progress specifically. All of the works in progress I showed you already. Some of those still aren't done, but I haven't actually picked them up. So I'm not going to talk about them today because that would be boring and repetitive. But I have started a couple of new things. These are gifts. So the first is, I've talked about this because I think I talked about these in my last episode, because these are for my son and I was planning on casting them on very soon. Let me show you the picture first. This is the Radio Frequency Mittens by Mandy Powers. I don't think she's designing anymore, but this book from like 2012, the Red Collection, is really excellent. It's possible you can still get the patterns on Ravelry. I'm not totally sure. But I was looking through patterns with my son and he really liked these, and it was great because I already have the pattern. And I've made these before, actually. I made these, I don't know, 11 or 12 years ago for somebody else. So the first one is almost finished. It just needs a thumb and it needs a good blocking, of course. But, and I haven't hid the ends, but what's so cool is that these are, the same pattern is reversed. So he can choose to wear them so that this is the palm or this is the palm, because you do the thumb gusset up in the side. Which is pretty cool. I've got this done and I am pretty close to the top of the second one, which looks just the same, only less complete. The thumb gusset goes in a different part. So here, you can see how that works. These are so fun the chart is really intuitive. I mean, the zigzaggy part, you're almost never carrying the yarn more than 3 stitches over. There is a little bit in the middle here where you've got like 5 stitches in one color, but you really don't have to do yarn management that much. There's a little bit in the thumb increases, but it's only like 2 or 3 rounds. The other sort of tricky part is that it starts with this braid at the bottom, which I love the look of. Your yarn gets super twisted when you're doing it, which is a little annoying, but it's only 2 rounds. So you're purling every stitch with the yarn in front of your work, and you're always looping a color 1 the first, I can't remember if it's the first or second round, but you're always carrying the yarn over the other color so they get really twisted. And then the next round, you're always carrying it under. Or maybe it's under then over. But anyway, it gets really twisted and that's annoying. But after 2 rounds of it, then you're done and you just start knitting up the chart. So I started these on Sunday night. So I've made a lot of progress very quickly. And in fact, the first mitten, I got about this far, just past the thumb gusset, and had him try it on and it was too tight. So I had to rip it out and start over on a bigger needle. And even so, I have gotten this far. It helps that Monday was a holiday, so I didn't have to work on Monday. And I spent the entire morning reknitting the mitten. But anyway, the yarn I'm using is delightful. I would like to keep working with it. So it is a collaboration between Knit Circus, which is a local to me dyeing company, and Utopia, which I mentioned before because the helix yarn is in this sweater. So Utopia mills the yarn. It's called Driftless DK, and it's a Rambouillet alpaca blend. So I believe the alpaca is 20% of it. It makes this soft and extra warm. Good qualities for mittens. I think it's 300 yards per skein per 100 grams. I don't remember what these colors are, but I really love how they go together. So yeah, Utopia mills the yarn and then Knit Circus dyes it. So this is this beautiful deep blue, and I love how it goes with the speckled on cream here. And it looks really nice in these mittens. So recommend, I really like that. I got this at the Madtown Shop Hop last fall, where I had no business buying any more yarn, but I knew these would be perfect for mittens for my son. So no regrets, at least for that purchase. The second work in progress is a pair of socks. A little bit plain, a little bit boring, but they are a gift. My father-in-law turns 80 in March, and we were visiting them over the Christmas holiday, and our family of 4 was staying at their house. It was fairly cramped. Their house is not big. And the room where I was sleeping, my daughter and I were sharing the room. There was a little pile of laundry in the corner of the closet, and I noticed that the socks I made him last year were in that laundry pile, which tells me that he wears them and he likes them. Ergo, he deserves another pair of hand-knit socks. They live in North Carolina. It doesn't get super cold there, or when it does get cold, it doesn't stay cold for very long, but wool socks are a great gift for somebody who will wear them. So I started another pair of socks. This is also Utopia yarn. I bought this, oh man, when Wisconsin Craft Market went out of business, I went a little nuts on their, they had to close because of COVID, and then they reopened like a year and a half later, just long enough to like get rid of as much stock as they could. So I bought a bunch of yarn from there on clearance, including this skein of sock yarn that I think was in a kit with something else, but I really wanted the sock yarn and it was already way marked down. So it's what they now call Wisco sock. It's a merino nylon blend. I've made many socks out of this yarn before. I don't know what the colorway is called, but you can see it's like a deep brown, a beautiful sort of chocolate, dark chocolate or espresso or something like that, which is just the sort of thing that my father-in-law would wear. So I am not using a pattern. I am making these socks like I always do. For his size feet, I cast on 72 stitches on a size 1 needle, and 2x2 cuff, plain stockinette for the leg. I have partridge heel, which you can kind of see, even though it's very dark. And you can see I'm on the gusset decreases now. I started this during a long meeting last week, and I had a lot of online meetings today, so I've actually got quite a bit of this done already this morning while I was working. Okay, that is it for my knitting projects for now, but I have some sewing projects to show you. A few garments and a few quilting projects. So let's do the garments first. These are nothing super new or earth-shattering, but I got them done in the last little while and thought I would share. I have made myself some pajama pants. These I actually finished a little while ago and just forgot to talk about. This is a blue plaid flannel, or kind of a gingham / plaid. I don't know what you would call this check pattern. It's very thick and very warm and very comfy. The pattern I use for this is the Luna Pants pattern by Ray Hoekstra from Made by Ray. I made a bunch of these for my daughter last summer. I made another pair of these for myself that I think I shared about. So I don't have anything new particularly to add. There are pockets. One of the things I like a lot about this pattern is that there is a separate facing for the waistband, and it makes everything fit together much better, I think, than if you just fold over the top for the casing. And the only adjustment I have made, or modification, is that the original pattern calls for elastic in the bottom of the leg, which I don't want for pajama pants. So I just leave that out and do a hem instead. So I have this pair, and I made myself a third pair out of this plum colored flannel. Same deal. They're just a different flannel. For this pair, I'm running low on the elastic I've been using. It's 1¼ inch wide, and this is, I think it's called pajama elastic, so it's supposed to be softer, but it doesn't quite, I don't know how to describe this in terms of elastic, but it's just kind of weak. I don't know. It feels like it doesn't want to stay up as securely as like a regular, thicker, stronger elastic would. It's just pajama pants, so it doesn't really matter. Like, I'm not running around town in these or anything, but future pairs, I will make sure I use a nice sturdy elastic that will really snap back into shape. Okay. The other garment project I have made is a dress for my niece. This is either a very late Christmas present or an early birthday present. I'm going to say it's an early birthday present because it's obviously more of a spring, summer dress than winter. I have made this pattern before. So this is for my older niece. She turns 8 in March. And I don't know if I'll wait until her birthday to send this or just send it. If I just send it independently of her birthday, I should make sure I've got something for her sister also. So I'll have to think about that. This is called the Mini Southport Dress by True Bias. I like this pattern a lot. I've made it before. This is like a quilting plaid, but it's woven. It's a woven plaid, and it's like drapey enough that it seems like it'd be very comfortable for garment sewing. So I have this in a couple of different colors to make dresses for her and her sister. What do I say? I really like this pattern. I think I'd have a hard time making it if I didn't have a serger. So I'll show you like the inside where I've sewed the seams. Like, there's not a good way that I know of that I could do like French seams or any of those fancier finishing techniques to deal with the raw edges if I didn't have a serger. Like, this here is where the top meets the waistband, and if I was trying to French seam or something, that would just be way too bulky, I think. Same with, like, here is under the arm. You actually make bias tape to finish the armholes and neckline, and there's a lot of layers right here where the bias tape comes together right at the underarm seam. And I just, if I wasn't able to serge this, if I had like French seams or something, it would be even more layers from folding everything over. And I don't know that it would work very well. But I do have a serger. I don't like changing the thread in it. So everything I am making right now is gonna have navy serging at the edges. So I can't make anything really light colored until I, muster up the courage to change the thread. But for now it's working. So this dress is super cute. The waistband is a really cool detail where you make these ties, but there is elastic. It's not gathered. You make a casing for elastic that you pull through, and you just stitch it down at the end where the ties come out. So it kind of looks like you have a drawstring waist, but you don't. I suppose you could if you really wanted, but this way, it's already kind of cinched in for you. So yeah, so it's really cute. I think that's all I have to say about this. This is like one of my go-to patterns when I want to make dresses for my nieces. The other one is the geranium dress by Ray Hoekstra. I've made a ton of those. There's different variations. And that one, by the way, the top is lined and the skirt is gathered. But the way you put it together, if you don't have a serger but you want to finish the seams, it's actually pretty easy to do, because just about everything is hidden within that lining except for the side seams for the skirt, and that would be really easy to do in a French seam. Okay, let's take a breath. I'm going to talk about a few quilting or quilting adjacent projects, two specifically. Here's something about me. I have the unfortunate habit of starting quilting projects and working on them in kind of a fury of energy, and then putting them away, and then forgetting about them for years, literal years. So I'm not going to show you all the ones that I have in my sewing space, but I will show you the ones that I have actually pulled out to work on. And I have two to show you. So the story with this first thing, this isn't even a quilt project. This is a placemat project that I thought I would just whip up in a week, and I didn't. I stopped, put it away, forgot about it. So at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, it was, spring 2020. I mean, we were just weeks in. Everybody was freaked out. Everybody who could stay home was staying home. My kids had school online. It was scary and sort of chaotic. And a lot of people were getting into, sourdough and bread baking and home crafts and stuff. Well, my mom offered to send me a bunch of scraps she had left over from a quilting project that she had been working on. And it was mostly squares that were already cut out. So she sent me this whole stack of them. And I decided to make placemats with them, just put them together to make placemats. And I don't know what this line of prints is. It's very distinctive. I believe it's an Australian designer. I don't know if these designs are I don't know if they're problematic, is what I'm trying to say. There's a real distinct look here, and it makes me wonder if the fabric designer borrowed from Aboriginal art, or if they are Aboriginal. I don't know. If you know, please tell me. If they are, I don't know what to think about it. I'm not making money off of these or sending them to anybody, so it's personal use, using up scraps. Anyway, so I put together these squares, and I think they're maybe 5 inches unfinished. So, I just have a 4x3. So I have 6 of these put together. I've got enough fabric left to do maybe a couple more. But you know, I like the idea of having some spare placemats. The ones we've been using are getting pretty stained and worn out. And it's nice having placemats on the table to help catch the spills and absorb the heat so we don't damage the table and all that. So anyway, so as I show you these, I will tell you that I have some decisions to make as to how to finish them. I have a big piece of blue linen, or it might be a linen blend like a navy, that I will use for the back, which I'll show you in a second. Here's the last one. I lost count. This might be 6, might be 7, I'm not sure. And this is a big piece of navy that goes well enough to use on the back. I didn't want it to clash terribly, but I didn't want to go shopping or, deal with piecing a back or anything. So what I haven't decided is if I want these to be quilted, like do I want to find batting to put as a layer in here so that they have a little more body, or which is where I'm leaning, because that also makes them a little more heat resistant and absorbent and everything. Or do I want to leave them like nice and drapey, and like just have the linen back and the pieced top as the layers of fabric. I would still need to stitch through the middle somehow in order to, keep them from separating too much. I'm not sure if I'm explaining very well. So I have some decisions to make, but what I don't want to do is put this away for another 4 years and not finish them. Like, I would like to just finish them, because it's a goal of mine, sort of an unofficial goal, to try to pick up some of these unfinished projects that I've had for years and years and finish them in 2024. I don't know that that's like a resolution exactly, but it just will feel good, I think. Now, this next one has been in my life for so long. So I was digging around a month or two ago looking for something else, fabric for some other purpose. I can't even remember. I might have been doing some patchwork bags or something. And I found this bag, this paper bag that was old and wrinkled. And when I looked inside, I saw a whole stack of 9 patch squares that apparently I put together at some point. Here's some of them. Bunch of plaids. I think what I probably did was buy a pack of fat quarters that all kind of go together and cut them up and made a bunch of 9 patches, intending to make a quilt, maybe even a baby gift. I don't remember. I vaguely remember this fabric. Once I looked at it, I was like, oh yeah, I kind of remember making those. I don't remember what the purpose was. This happens. If you're like a crafty person who does a lot of things and gets inspired by a lot of things, you can probably relate. So anyway, I've got all these squares in the bag, and I did not remember when I started this. I just know it was a long time ago. But in the bag was also some solid fabric. I've got scraps to show you. A rather large piece of this blue, and then smaller cuts, I think half-yard cuts of this lavender and this green, which, I don't get super excited about the colors exactly, but I'm sure I picked them out because they go with the colors that are in these squares. And in that bag was a receipt from a quilt shop that is no longer in business, and the date was 2013. So I started this thing at least 11 years ago. At least that's when I bought fabric to finish. Well, I could tell that for the number of squares that I had, even with the solids, I don't know what my plan was for putting it all together, but I knew this was not really going to be enough for anything. Maybe a baby quilt, but I don't really want to make a baby quilt. I'd rather have a lap quilt, I think. So I found those and I thought, maybe I should finish that, but I just don't know how. So I put it away. But then around the holidays, I saw that Susan B. Anderson on her Instagram had posted, if you follow her, you've probably seen that she's been really into quilting lately, and it's so much fun to see what she comes up with. Susan B. Anderson, in case you're not already familiar with her, she co-owns the Barrett Wool Company where the yarn for this sweater came from with her son. She's a toy designer extraordinaire. She's just a very artistic and creative person generally, and just a lovely person to follow. She also lives in Madison, which is cool. I've only met her like twice, but still, the proximity makes me feel cool. Anyway, she had made this quilt, I think for her daughter, and it was all these trees. It was these tree blocks, and it was so cool. It's fun to see what she does with color and design. She's just really, obviously, has a very artistic eye. But in the caption to one of the posts with that quilt, she pointed to a tutorial on YouTube that she used to make those tree blocks. And when I saw that, something clicked for me. I thought, you know what? Just so you know, I'm not a very experienced quilter. I tend to do things pretty straightforward and simple. I like to work with sets of fabrics that already go together, or like a really narrow color scheme, just because otherwise I get overwhelmed. But when I saw what she had done with those, I realized that I could make some tree blocks, trim them down to the same size as these 9 patches, and put those together for this quilt. So I went through my fabric stash. I have small pieces and scraps and things. And I combined some prints that pick up colors that are in those plaids in the 9 patches. And I combined them with the green and purple that you saw. And I made a bunch of tree blocks. And this is really good for me. This stretched me. This pushed me out of my comfort zone creatively, because not everything goes together perfectly. I feel much more confident picking yarn colors for things, because I feel like I can visualize. I have more experience with that, and I can just visualize much better how it's going to work together. I don't always get it right, but I'm better at kind of envisioning a future project with yarn than I am with fabric. So anyway, I'll show you some of the blocks that I made. But you can see, here's the purple, and then here's a print. This tutorial, which I will share in the description box below this video, it's by Robin, I think is her name. It's cool because you can kind of freewheel it. You cut 2 squares that are about 1 inch bigger than you want the finished block to be. And you slice off the bottom and then cut that in half, because that's where your stem's going to go, or your trunk is going to go. And you slice this way and you slice this way, and then you sew it all back together, and then you can trim around the edges. So you don't have to be super precise, even though there are diagonal seams here. I don't know if I'm explaining that very well, but if you really want to try it, watch the tutorial. I watched about half of it and I was like, okay, I think I get the idea. So this is what I've got. So I've got all these trees in different colors. Some of these are kind of ugly, but it's using up fabric I've got, and I think when it all goes together, it'll be okay. So I won't be tedious and show you every single block that I made, but I think you get the picture. So then I took the large piece of that bright blue fabric and started cutting pieces to go around the blocks. And my idea is that I'm going to have a vertical row of the plaid, and a vertical row of the trees, and a vertical row of the plaid, and I want to stagger them a little bit. So let's see. So what it'll look like next to each other. Bear with me, y'all. I'm not like a quilting YouTuber, so I don't really know how all this works, but I'll have rows that are going like this for the plaids, and for the trees, I will have rows that are going like this. So it'll be kind of staggered that way. Well, this was all going gangbusters until I had used up all of my blue fabric and had not finished, you know, cutting pieces out for all of the blocks. This is turning into a really long episode, so go take a bathroom break, get yourself a snack, whatever you need. Anyway, I like how it looks, but, you know, I was running out of fabric and I didn't really want to buy more, but I don't want this to be like too much of a chaotic mess. So I went to Blue Bar Quilts yesterday and got some help from lovely people who work there who helped me pick out this blue fabric, which is not an exact, it's pretty close. I think it's closer actually in real life than it's showing up on the screen. But this blue, it's a real similar blue, but it's not totally solid. It has like freckles kind of navy. So this I can use to finish making the strips that go on the tops and bottoms of these blocks. And then I also picked out, because I didn't want it to be too overwhelmingly blue, she helped me find this green print. This one was on sale, which was nice. That has these, it looks like brush marks in different shades of green and blue. So it picks up, dropping things, it picks up the colors in some of these blocks really nicely. I'm trying to find a plaid one. And the colors that I like I didn't want to go overwhelmingly with the like yellowish green, definitely not with the purple. But I think like keeping it kind of in this dark, you know, the dark bright blue and the dark green will work out nicely. So I got plenty of the green and the blue to do all the kind of in-between stuff. I don't know what I'll do for a backing yet, but I think I need to get the top done first and kind of see how all that looks. I also don't know what to do about a border. I told you I'm not a super experienced quilter, and one way that shows up is that like, I know that a border can really make or break a quilt. Sometimes you'll have like pretty plain blocks for the main part of a quilt, but then if you have like a really amazing fabric for the border or an amazing like pieced something happening, it can really make a big difference, and I don't know what to do about that. But this is the way I quilt. I do not plan meticulously, obviously. I kind of make it up as I go. I prefer that to following a pattern. For knitting, I tend to follow, I tend to follow patterns or very simple formulas. I don't know, everything else in my life is sort of planned and structured, and I like that I have this thing that I can be kind of improvisational about and just sort of see how things develop. I just like that. Anyway. That is all I have for you today. Thank you for sticking with me. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.